Good morning, everyone. Oh, come on. Good morning. All right, good. That's better. Was pink just too much for all of you last night? Wasn't that a great show? All right, great. We're here today to talk about how to dig into CRM data with Salesforce Report and Dashboard Filters. Before we get started, please make all purchase decisions based on currently available products and services. Thank you for being here. It gives me an opportunity to speak and talk about a book that I wrote that came out last year called Mastering Salesforce Reports and Dashboards. My name is David Carnes. I'm the founder and chairman of a consulting firm called OpFocus. We work with mostly SaaS companies to help optimize their go-to-market tech stack. So we've been working with Salesforce for over 18 years now. So as I mentioned, I wrote a book on reports and dashboards. I also host a group called Dashboard Dojo. We meet every now and then, sometimes once a month, twice a month. We're meeting next week to talk about the Winter 25 release for report and dashboard features. And it's just dashboarddojo.com. I mention that because we have over 40 hours of me talking about all different kinds of report and dashboard features. So just thought to share that. Your ability to report in Salesforce really depends on your understanding of the data model and your ability to leverage filters. And Salesforce gives us a number of filtering options, and it's through combining these different options that we can really get at the data in our systems. What I want to share with you today are some filtering basics. And then I want to talk to you about report filters, and then want to slip in a few advanced report filters. Talk to you about dashboard filters. We can now have 5 filters on every dashboard. I'm sure you guys knew that. That's pretty cool. And then I think we'll have some time that we can do some Q&A. I just noticed the guys didn't start the clock. Jason, can we start the clock? Cool. Thank you, guys. All right, let's do some filtering basics. So did you know that there are quite a few system-generated fields? These are system-generated formula fields that are available to us when creating reports. We can display these fields. We can also use them in filtering. So on opportunities, there's quite a handful of them. And instead of, for example, filtering on the 7 open opportunity stages that you have, hint, hint, those change over time, right? Instead of doing that, you could say closed equals false. And then you don't have to change them every single time that the stages change. There's one that I discovered more recently, and I think it's been around for a while, called push count. There's another one called has products, another one called last stage change date, stage duration. These are some really useful things, and we can definitely take advantage of them when filtering. You can see here in the center screenshot, it says filter by push count greater than 5. So you can think of somebody who's running a sales team deciding, do they trust the data that's in their pipeline? And one of the ways to determine that could be, has the date been pushed out, kicked out, kicked out, kicked out? Maybe this is never going to close. So we also have fields on cases. There's age, open, closed. Similarly, if you're filtering on case statuses, rather than saying all of the open case statuses, you might say closed equals false or just open equals true. We can also filter on escalated. There are other objects not listed that have these system-generated fields. One that I think is kind of cool is on the bottom of the list. If you're creating a report on opportunity history, there's the ability to include, you see at the bottom screenshot on the right here, it says include downgraded. And what that means is opportunities that have gone backwards. And again, this is just fields, system-generated fields that are available to us. All right, the next thing in our filter basics is understanding operators. Operators are really the magic of filters, right? They're the thing in the middle. We often use equals or does not equal, but we can be a bit more creative than that. There is a list. I've got the QR code here. This is a page in Help that lists the entire filter operator reference. And there are ones that you don't really imagine, or you may not realize are there, because if you notice the screenshot on the left, when you're going to update an operator, there's no scroll bar. But there are more options. If you just sort of move downward, there are more options. So I don't want you to miss those. So below well, less than or equal or greater than or equal, we have the ability to do things like contains and does not contains, starts with, and includes. Similarly, we have a filter reference for relative date values. This is not a new list. I have been pulling out this list for probably close to 20 years now in Salesforce, and the list has gotten longer and longer over time. When reporting, when creating report or dashboard filters, this is super useful to help you. So if you're creating a filter on a close date or a created date or some other date or date time field, you can have dynamic date ranges that are just always up to date. So this quarter, this month, this week. But you can also do things like the next 7 days, the next 22 days, the last 35 months. So you can throw in, you use numbers in the middle, but we can take advantage of the relative date value filters. These are also useful on list views as well. There are other places in the system where we filter where you can take advantage of these. When you're using relative date values, one of the tips is, if you're just getting started with them, stick with equals or not equal to. If you start playing around with greater thans and less thans with relative date ranges, you kind of get messed up, right? So if you say, greater than the last 15 days, it's not including the last 15 days. It's from now going forward, and you may have no results. So I want you to just be careful with and stick to the equals or not equal tos, or just be careful. So here's the QR code for the relative date value filters. This is one of the most useful lists in help in Salesforce. All right, another filter basic is this little tiny checkbox that you may have noticed, the word locked. So on the left screenshot, we can see a red arrow pointing to the word locked, and you may have wondered, what in the world is that for? This is a really handy thing if you have specific things you don't want people to see or you don't want them to ever encounter. So that could be bad data, it could be test data, and you just always want to filter that stuff out. So if you check that box when you add a filter to a report and you check that box, when an end user runs the report and they look at, there's a little filter bump out, the filter pane, and if the filter panel, sorry, if you click on the little filter icon, you can see all of the filters for the report, and you can see the bottom one is now locked, and that means the users can't change it. So if you need to exclude some, you've acquired a company and there's just this mess of data and you need it in the system for some reason, but you don't want it included, you can actually filter that out and then lock the filter so when an end user tinkers. And these filters are meant to be tinkered with, right? So if an end user runs a report and clicks that filter panel, they can absolutely make changes to the filters right on the report when they're running the report. But if the filter is locked, they can't make the change. All right, let's shift to very specifically report filters. So we have quite a few report filters. There are standard filters. So depending on the report type you choose, that first step when you create a new report, you choose the report type. Each report type has a bunch of standard filters. I know some of you are frustrated by, let's say you report on accounts and it says, only show me accounts that I own created in the last 7 days, and almost always we're clearing those out. So those are the standard filters, and those are meant to be played with by your end users, so they go run the report and they can tinker and change, stuff like that. We also have the ability to add up to 20 field filters, so we call those advanced filters, and that should be pretty good for most of us. I think NASA might require more than 20. And we do have ways, I'll talk about writing formulas as a way to use in filters. So when you start adding more than one advanced filter, you have the option to use filter logic. And filter logic is something I'll talk a little bit about. We can see in the bottom, on the right, the bottom here in the screenshot, it says 1 and in parentheses 2 or 3. When you're adding advanced filters, we can do interesting logic. We can use ands and ors and nots and have multiple nested parentheses if we need to really get at the data that you want. There's another type of filter I'll talk about called cross filters. It's one of the most powerful things. In fact, Salesforce has a patent on cross filters. It's just a very cool way of filtering on the existence or the lack of child data. So some of you might use assets, and you want to see all the accounts that are customers that have no assets. And this cross filters allows us to do that. So I'll show an example of that in a little bit. All right, so just to dig a little more into filter logic, this only applies to the advanced filters, as I mentioned. And once you've added your advanced filters, you want to add all of them first. So we can see on the left screenshot, I've added industry equals agriculture, et cetera, mailing country equals Japan, type equals mechanical. Once I've added my advanced filters, what I can now do is go up to the pull down, the action menu next to the word filters, and I can choose add filter logic. And then what Salesforce does is it basically swaps out what are just ands in between each of the filters and allows you to replace them with ors and parentheses and things like that. So we can be very, very precise with our filtering. And because you can have 20 advanced filters, your filtering can be really, really complex, which is good. All right, a nice little feature to shift gears that was introduced earlier this year is the ability to swap fields. We were just talking about complex, lots of advanced filters on a report, and if you just need to switch one out, so you put the mailing country instead of the billing country, something like that, this is a really nice feature. So I'm looking at an advanced filter. I've clicked on it. On the left there, it says billing state province equals Texas. And then on the right, I have the filter properties. And if I click on that X there, I can actually replace and switch another field in. Is this a major enhancement? No, but is it helpful? Sure. I think it's great, especially if you have complex filters in your reports. So let's go take a look at this. I've got a nice little pre-recorded video here. And we can see I'm in a report on opportunities. And I'm on the filters tab. There are 5 filters applied to this particular report. So I've got standard filters on the top, advanced filters on the bottom. I used the mailing country by mistake. I need to switch that out. There's no data. We don't even use the mailing country. So what I'm going to do is just click on that and then come up and click the X and swap that out. So then I'll type in billing country. And then I need to replace the USA and Canada. Click apply, and I should now see some data. That's a simple little trick for swapping out the fields in your filters, report filters. A feature that was given to us a few years back is field-to-field filtering. This allows us to specify a field, indicate an operator in between, and then compare that field value to some other field value. And when this came out, I was like, this is great, because you can do things like this example here, where I'm looking at a list of opportunities, and it's a last modified date, and I want to see all the last modifieds that are greater than the close date on the opportunity. And it's kind of just a cool little thing. I'm sure some of you have better examples than this, but basically what we can do is create the report, add the field filter we want, and there's a little pull down, the word type. Normally it's set to value, but we can switch it to field and then pick one of the fields that has a similar data type. Has anybody made use of this? All right, that's not enough of you. So there are a few caveats with this. It's not supported if you use multi-currency, so you can't use currency fields for this if you're using multi-currency. You cannot use it with certain kinds of custom report types, and similarly, we cannot use this with joined reports. I'll just show you this in action very quickly. So I'm on an opportunity report, and I've got some standard filters there, and if I go ahead and add an advanced filter, field filter, on the last modified date, and you can see the default is value, but I'm going to switch that in the type field to field. And by default, it's picking the right field that I want, but normally I'd change it and say exactly what I want, just so happens. And then I'm going to change the operator from equals to greater than. And click apply, and we'll see the list of opportunities that are that have been edited since they've been closed. I think CFOs don't like that. All right, another type of filter that's actually existed in Salesforce for many, many years. We had it in Classic for a long time, but it wasn't added to Lightning until more recently, is a row limit filter. So these are available to us when we create a report that is not grouped. The report has to be not grouped, so what we call a tabular report, so rows and columns. And then one other little secret ingredient is that the report has to be sorted. So you have to sort by something, because that's going to give you the top 10 or the bottom 10 or whatever the list that. So with a row limit filter, we can limit from one record. I don't think I'm ever going to do that, but maybe I will. Like, who's the biggest client ever? We can also limit to 99 records, so that's the range we're allowed. So we can have one of these per report. That kind of makes sense. And why don't I show you? I did add a little demo this morning of this. So let's take a look. So I'm on a report on accounts. And this particular report on accounts has a roll-up summary on the right called Total One Business to Date. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this column, the Total One Business to Date. Eventually, I'm going to sort that. Oh, no, I'm just showing you now that it's not grouped. And if we come over here and we go to the action pull down, the row limit is grayed out. I can't use the row limit filter because I haven't sorted by anything yet. So I'm going to sort by this Total One Business to Date. I'm going to click it twice to sort it descending, so we see the biggest customer on the top. And now I can go back to that action pull down, select Add Row Limit, and the default is 10, so that's going to work for me in this case, the top 10 customers, but I could set that to anywhere from 1 to 99. So pretty good. And I can see it if I run it. I see my top 10 records. Great. All right, let's talk about let's go to the deeper end of the swimming pool a little bit. Some advanced report filters. So cross filters, I don't want them to feel advanced for you. I think this should just be part of your tool belt, your standard tool belt, but oftentimes they do feel a little advanced. The key thing to think about here is what makes this so magical is you're reporting on what could be one object, and you're filtering on whether there are or are not child records related to that parent object. Okay? So you can create a report on accounts, and the report is only based on accounts, but you can filter on child records that aren't even on the report. This is why this is so cool. So we can filter on one object's relationship to another object. We can choose to see records with or without the related child records. So this all depends on your data model. If you have a lot of custom objects and the custom objects are related to each other, you can report on the top object with or without the child object records. What makes this pretty cool, we can have 3 of these per report, and we can also filter the cross filters up to 5 times each, and that's where this starts to get really amazing. So to add one, we go to the filter tab. You can see in the left-hand screenshot here, and if we add cross filter, then what I've done here is I have accounts with opportunities. So this report is on just accounts. There are no opportunities on the report, but I'm filtering on the fact that there are opportunities. And then I'm going a step further, and I'm saying opportunities that are won and that the amount is over $1 million. So really, really powerful stuff here. And you can combine these. You could have another one that says, I want to see all the companies that have a deal over $1 million and have no cases. Like, that's our best customer ever, right? No support tickets, but they bought a lot of stuff from us. So that's great, right? So let's go see this in action. So I'm on a report called Customer Accounts, and this report is based on just the account report type. So there's no other data, but I can filter on assets, I can filter on cases, I can filter on opportunities. So there's basically, this is just showing me a list of customers. And when I come in and edit, so I can only add these when I'm editing the report, and go to the filter tab, and I'll go ahead and add a cross filter. And when I select this, I've got accounts with, and I can change it to without if I want. And I've got this whole list, all these things that have some kind of a lookup up to the account. There's a long list: contacts, assets, orders, cases. It goes on, contact roles. So we're going to say accounts without cases, and we go ahead and run that, and I have 150 accounts out of 700 or so customers. 150 have no cases. So let's look at another example here, where that one that I had on the screenshot before. So the accounts with I want to see a list of accounts that have an opportunity that's won and over $1 million. And I can see it here if I just look at the filter panel. It's accounts with opportunities. The 1 equals true, and then greater than $1 million. If you're looking for data anomalies in your system, this is awesome. This is awesome, right? I guess I'm showing it just a little bit more about how to do this. And keep in mind that you can combine them. This is where this gets really, really powerful, that you can have multiple cross filters. So here I am combining, and I'm saying, I want to see all the ones with big deals won without any cases, and there's some number here, 27 of them. These are our best customers, right? All right, let's keep going. So I really like using formulas to filter reports. It's just a nice skill to rely on. Whenever you're creating reports, keep in the back of your mind that formulas is like a Swiss Army knife to solve all kinds of problems, including filtering problems. And in the olden days, we would use, before we had so many different types of filters, we would actually create custom formula fields, so create a field that would return true or false, and then we can filter our reports on that, right? So we could bury all the complexity of the filtering in a formula field. Now, because we can have row-level formulas, we can actually do it directly on a report. So while you're writing the report, you can add a filter. So I've got one here on the left is a row-level formula. And this one I could do another way, but just to show you, it says the case of the text of a custom field called region. If it's CALA, which is Caribbean and Latin America, it's true, it's an emerging, this is what this test is for, it's an emerging region. If it's APAC, it's true. If it's EMEA, it's false. If it's North America, it's false, and so on. If it's Mars, it's true. That's emerging. Yep, we're not on Mars yet. But what I can do is go ahead and add, so I can create a row-level formula on the report, have the output be true or false, and then use that in a filter. So I can basically bury all the complexity of the filter into a formula field, into a row-level formula. So similarly on the right, I can go ahead and create a custom formula field. So we've been doing that for years and years. We don't really need to do it quite as much anymore, but I could bury something in as a custom field, and that custom formula field isn't on any page layout, right? And it just returns true or false. And the only reason for its existence is to use in filtering reports. And where that's really, really nice is cross-object formulas. So are you guys familiar with cross-object formulas? So when you create a formula field, you can reference up to 10 objects away, grab a value, and pull it into your formula here. So if you have if you have lots of custom objects and there's lots of hierarchy, you can reach up through lookups and master details, grab a value, pull it in, and use it in your formula field. That's a cross-object formula. It's really, really useful. So let's take a look. So I have kind of a quirky example here. We have an integration, folks. We have an integration, and the integration is going to break if there are more than 25 characters in the opportunity name. Somebody really dumb created this integration. But what I could do is I can actually figure out which opportunities are going to fail. And what I might do is create a row-level formula here. So I just have a report on opportunities, and I have the opportunity names. And I'm just going to check the length of the name. Well, we have all these functions, right? So formulas are useful because we have about 100 functions. And one of the functions we can use on text is the length of the text, right? So how long is this particular text? So I'm going to add a row-level formula. And we're going to give it a name, the op name too big. And the output will be true if it's too big, and it'll be false if it's not too big. I'm saying the output is text. We have a list of fields we can use. We have a list of functions. Pro tip, it only gives about 40 functions here. You can use more. There's more functions available. And there's a really nice help page that lists the 100 or so functions. In fact, I'm using a function that isn't listed in the list of functions. It's the length function. So I'm saying if, and I'm sorry, oh, here it is, a little bit bigger. If the length of the opportunity name is greater than 25, right, it's the number of characters in that name, return true. If not, return false. So I'm accomplishing my filtering goal by writing a formula, row-level formula. I'm going to check the validate button. Great. It's good. I'll go ahead and click apply. And now I have a list of false, 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 true, 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 et cetera. And I can go ahead and use this as a filter. So if we click on the filters tab, what we'll see is I can add the op name too big, and it's always, the row-level formula is always at the bottom of the list. So I scroll down, op name too big, and I'll just say if it equals true, we'll see the ones that will error out with our integration. Pretty cool, right? Keep in mind, formulas are your friends. Another sort of advanced thing that we can do, and this is not new, but we can pass filter parameters via URL So you might have a button on a page, or you might have some links on your home page, and you want to point to a particular report, and you want to pass something to it. Well, we can do it by we basically are creating a URL to the report. So you can see here I've got a button at the top of an account called Open Case Report, and then the definition of that button has a long URL, and then at the very end it has, in yellow, it has some very special characters. We have an ampersand FV0, that's filter value number 1 on the report, and we say equals account ID. So we're just merging in the account ID. So this is going to be on an account layout. Somebody's going to click the button, and it's going to run a report, which is kind of nice, right? So if you have something and you want to see open cases, let's say. So a little bit more information about this. You want to first create your report, and you want to have the desired filters ready to go. My strong suggestion is that you put these system reports into a folder called System Reports. Make it read-only. Don't let anybody change your system reports. The field filter order is important. So it's very important. It starts with a 0, so it's using something called array notation. So if I want to reference the third filter, it's FV4. Sorry, it's FV2. It's the other way around, sorry. So the first one is 0, the second one is 1. Does that make sense? It starts with the number 0. So we're going to basically pass a value to FV0 on this report, and it's going to be based on a link. So then what we want to do is take that report URL, just run the report, copy the URL, and then we want to paste it, and we want to add the ampersand FV0 equals in the squiggly brackets to merge in the account ID. So let's go take a look at this. So I'm on an account called Nichols134, and up in the top right, you can see there's a button called Open Case Report. And if I were to click on that, it will run the report, and it'll show me that I have 2 open cases on there. And the way that we built this is I basically copied that URL at the top of the report. Well, first I create the report, and I put it in a folder called System Reports. And then when I run that, I'll go up and copy the URL. Probably what we'll do is look at the filters real quick, and you can see that the account ID equals, and I just have it as blank because this report will only ever be used by a button calling it, and we're always going to pass the account ID to it. And then I have the second filter there, it says closed equals false. We're just going to ignore that. It'll just show us open cases. So then if I copy this URL and I go put it into a button, the question is, it seems like I fell asleep while I was working on this. So if we go into setup, we put our sysadmin hat on for a moment and go under Object Manager, under the account object, we go to Buttons, Links, and Actions. We're going to create a button to put on the account layout. And you can see here the button I've already created. It's called Open Case Report. And there's a button up at the top right called New Button. That's how we would create this. Once you click on it, you basically paste in the long URL for your report, and then that secret sauce at the end, the ampersand FV0 equals, and we have a merge field picker, and we can merge in the account ID. Pretty cool. All right, let's shift gears. Let's talk about dashboard filters. So we can now have up to 5 filters per dashboard. That limit was 3 for years and years and years, so it was up to 5 late last year. We can filter on pick lists. We can filter on lookups, checkboxes, text fields, number fields, date fields, and date time fields. So it's quite a lot of different types of fields. When you add one of your up to 5 filters per report, per dashboard, sorry, each one of these can have up to 50 values per filter. And we can create combos. So if you're working on a pick list and you want to combine a few of the pick list items into essentially one category, you just essentially separate them by commas. You select the multiple pick lists. Or if I wanted to combine Australia and New Zealand and call it ANZ, I could put Australia, New Zealand, and that would just become a single unit in the filter. One thing about filters is that they filter each other. So if you have 5 filters on a dashboard, the filters, right? So it's essentially the triangulation of that. So if you're filtering on country and you're filtering on industry, it's the triangulation of that. And one thing that you really need to teach your users is that if they do play with filters and then they click away, when they click back, those same filters are still applied. So the same filters are still intact there. So one of the cool things we can do, I mentioned earlier the relative dates. We can use relative dates when we're filtering dashboards. A nice thing for this is if you're filtering on your open pipeline and you have a bunch of opportunity reports showing different things about your open pipeline, why not add a filter on the close date? And you could say the close date equals this week, this month, next month, this quarter, next quarter, whatever you want to allow the users to really drill into the data. And the way to take advantage of the relative dates is when you add a filter on a date field, you can choose a calendar, or you can see the red arrow here pointing to the option for relative, and then we just have to put in the date range that we want, the relative date range such as last 17 days. Hopefully none of you have open opportunities with a close date in the last 17 days. Let's go see this in action. I have a dashboard here. It's very colorful. Love that watermelon color theme there. So we have 3 filters on here right now, and I've got space for up to 2 more. And you can see for the country one, I've got a bunch: Canada, Australia, New Zealand combined. That's a combined one there. And then I've got China, Japan, etc. And what I can do is come up and edit the dashboard, and I can add up to 2 additional filters. So if I click the Add Filter button, and then choose the field that I want, and basically I'm going to see a list of all the fields that are common to the different elements on that dashboard. So if you have cases, leads, and opportunities on the same dashboard, this is harder to work with. But if you have an open pipeline, or if it's all service and support related, maybe this is a bit more useful. So I've come in here, I've selected the industry, and I'm going to do a combo of banking, finance, and insurance. Sometimes that's called FBI, finance, banking, insurance. So I've got agriculture, apparel, and FBI. I can go ahead and add up to 47 more values in my filter. And then if I want to add one more filter, I still can. Let's add one on the created date. And we can use the relative date values to say last year, the year before, 2 years ago, stuff like that. So I've come in here. The default is always calendar, which doesn't really make sense. I think you're more likely to use relative dates. And then we could say something like this year, apply that, add another one, make it last year. And I do want to show you a mistake, and I laughed at myself when I was recording this, that I typed in 2 years ago, TWO years ago, and I just wasn't thinking. I'm just zipping right along, and it doesn't like it, right? It wants the number 2 for the 2 years ago. So when I go ahead and try to apply this, there's an error here. It says unsupported value. So if we come back and replace the TWO with the number 2, this should be fine. And now we have our 5th filter. So you don't have to have 5 filters, but we can have 5 filters. So I think this is pretty great. You save it, it's available for your users right away. It's a really nice way to give more to your users, more value out of a single dashboard. And you can see here, if I were to select agriculture, it basically just reruns the dashboard with that filter applied, and you can have multiple filters applied at the same time. So it looks like I'm doing this for the created date, so deals that are in the agriculture industry that were created 2 years ago, and we'll get some data returned on that. All right. Let's talk about filtering dashboards with URL parameters. So remember we talked about adding a button to an account layout, and you click the button and it runs a report. Well, we can do that with dashboards too. And probably a more common scenario is you add a text widget to a dashboard and you link to other dashboards, or you do it on your home page, or you could actually have a dashboard that's coming from a record page. That's probably less likely, but you could do it. So here you need to have a dashboard in place, and the filters have to be in place, and the filter values have to be in place. So you need 3 ingredients before you get started. Create your dashboard, save it, add the filters, save them, and make sure you have the filter values for those filters that you're going to want to pass in the URL. So once you have all those ingredients in place, what we can do is copy the URL of the dashboard, and then once again we can use the ampersand FV0 and FV1. In this case, I'm using FV1 and FV2 because I have 4 filters, and I'm using the middle two. So I'm referencing FV1 and FV2. And let's go see this one in action. So I'm on my dashboard here. I have the country, and you just want to make sure you have your value. So I'm going to want to add USA banking. I'm just going to double check. The USA was there, banking is there, good. So then now what I can do is go to my home page. I'll copy this URL, and I can add a URL link on the home page that points to this dashboard and applies those specific filters. So here I am. I have my sysadmin hat on. I am editing the home page. I could use a rich text component, put that on the page. I already have one here, so I'm just going to edit this one. And you can see right now I have insurance in Canada that links to that same dashboard. I have biotech in Japan. It links to the same dashboard and is passing parameters to that dashboard. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that component, and then I get the properties window up in the right for that rich text component. I'm just going to add another line to it. Banking in USA. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to use the rich text thing to add a link, paste in my URL for the dashboard, and I'm going to add the ampersand. And it was FV1 because it wasn't the first filter. So FV1 equals USA. And then another ampersand, and FV2 equals banking. We'll click Save. Click Save again. Go look at the home page. That's now there. And if I click on it, it'll run the dashboard with those filters applied. Pretty cool, right? So we can see this here. We'll go ahead and click on Banking in the USA. And we can see that the country is USA and the industry is banking. All right. So I hope you guys keep learning this stuff. It's good stuff. Filtering, as I said before, it really makes the difference, knowing these different ways to get at the data. This impacts your reporting. It certainly impacts your dashboards as well. There are quite a few Trailhead modules now on reporting. So that's one way to get started if you're new at this and you just want some structure. As I mentioned, I host a group called Dashboard Dojo. There are over 40 hours of me blathering about this stuff. And just we go deep on specific topics. So there's something very specific on analytic snapshots, and there's another one on creating dashboards, and there's lots of hands-on examples, formula writing and stuff. And the recordings are just at dashboarddojo.com. And then finally, as I mentioned, I wrote a book called Mastering Salesforce Reports and Dashboards. It took me 18 months, labor of love. It was a lot of fun. So before we wrap up, so thank you guys for being here. We do have, I don't know if you guys have been filling out surveys. That's how I get invited back, so I'd appreciate it if you guys have any thoughts you might share. But apparently Salesforce is offering coffee for the first 4,000 people that submit 4 surveys. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'm speaking one more time today, by the way, over in the Marriott Marquis at 2:30, session on Take Your Reports to the Next Level. It's basically best practices on reporting, 2:30 at the Marriott Marquis and down in the basement. Circles of Success. Yes, and we can do some questions. Sure. Go ahead. Previous slide, okay. I'm sorry, this one? Oh, okay. Any other questions? We have, yes, go ahead. Links to the dash, go ahead. Can you link based on the user? So, there's another way to do that by having the running user set to that person. So there's another concept in dashboards called the running user. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a good, but you could just literally put a link to that dashboard, and the running user would take care of it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Can you come a little closer? I'm sorry. We have merge fields, but probably not what you're referring to. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, the book is available on Amazon. Sorry, I could have been more explicit about how to get the book. But great question. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Across filters, so you don't have to adjust record type. I could just use opportunity, and I can still go back to the child record and I don't have to do another record type to say it's opportunity with bids.
No, that's the absolute power of it. It's magical. And if you're doing things with CPQ and you have those child objects or you have opportunity products, absolutely. The power of cross filters is you create the report on one object. You don't have to there's nothing up my sleeve, and you can filter on things that aren't even on the report. It's magical.
Thanks so much. I'm going to do that.
Awesome, great. Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Oh, great question. So the question's about pipeline inspection, which I haven't used. I'm sorry that I can't compare and contrast it. Yeah, but you bought it, so hopefully you get some use out of it. Yeah, go ahead. I don't see why not, as long as you can basically... Yeah. Yeah, so I don't remember the full list of, so the question is, can we have flow results in passing a parameter to a report? So as long as we can output something to a link with flow, and I just don't remember if we can, then I don't see why not. Yeah, good question. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, great question. So if we clone a report that has locked filters, if somebody clones a report, it becomes their report. So I think they can edit it at that point. It'll be locked, but they could still edit it. Yeah, this is why we put reports into folders that are read-only. That's about as far as we can control it. So good question. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, so we have the save as feature. So save as. Is that the answer? So I'm thinking save as, because you can put it in a new place. Why does that change the original? I wouldn't think it would. Yeah. I think save as should work that way, but it sounds like you've experienced something. I haven't experienced that. I guess I clone stuff all the time, but so it'd be fun to look at it together and just figure out what's going on. Yeah. Do you have a? Yes. I think they try to accommodate everybody. I think they do their best. It's circles of success are nice because people are chatting around a table. So, yeah, sure. A dashboard filter? No, but a trick to do that, because we can have 5 on a single dashboard, is to use the same field twice. So it's not perfect, because if somebody selects one and one and one and the other, that you'll always have nothing. There'll be no records. So you just have to teach them to not choose the. There are 14 color schemes in the palette. If you edit a dashboard, you can change. You go into the properties of the dashboard. You can choose, but you have to. There's a profile permission to change dashboard colors. If you're not a sysadmin, you may not have that permission. So. I wrote a blog article for Salesforce about report and dashboard permissions. Only 4 out of 30 permissions are assigned by default, are enabled by default. So there are another 26, and if you're a super user for reporting, you might want to read that article. I can tell. I'll probably have to wrap up, and I can tell you how to find it. Great.